What is up, everybody? This is the One Nutrition Podcast. I'm your host, Chris Heskett, and this is episode 61. Today's guest is Stephanie Fusnick. Ladies, you do not want to miss this episode. This is going to apply directly to you, but guys, if you're listening, you're still going to get a lot out of it with understanding the hormones, because Steph breaks down how hormones work in a really easy way to understand things. Steph has been in the health and fitness field since 2011. She is a personal trainer, exercise therapist, neurokinetic and manual osteopathic therapist, and a nutrition coach. She is the CEO of Vitality OET, which is a women's health, fitness, and nutrition company that focuses primarily on women's hormones, particularly as they start their journey through perimenopause and onward, so post-menopause as well. She is passionate about all things hormones, especially cortisol, which is our stress hormone, and we dive into that, and talking about carbs. So diet and hormones, those are the things we're going to talk about a ton today. This intro is going on long enough. Let's get into things. What's up, Steph?
Hello, hello.
All right, tell the audience a little bit about yourself. I'm super excited to have you on, but the audience doesn't know you yet, so give them an introduction.
Okay, we'll do like the Cliff Notes version of my life and how I got here. So I was born in Vancouver in BC. I'm Canadian, then moved to a small town in Saskatchewan. Loved health, loved fitness, loved sports. Went to university in a bigger city to become a phys ed teacher. Found out very quickly that I do not have the patience for that. So lucky kids that I figured that out earlier and didn't have to suffer with me as a teacher. But got into personal training right away. And I found out quickly, like, what I really loved, which was like chronic disease, seeing people build confidence and get stronger and like figure out who they were. And like this whole process that happens through training, but like loved chronic disease. Like the more things you had, the more I enjoyed it, like diabetes, cancer, osteoporosis, cardiovascular things, COPD, anything chronic diseasey. I was like so excited, loved it so much. So then I did my bachelor's and master's in kinesiology. Then I worked as an exercise therapist, working in the health region, running like chronic disease exercise management programs. And during all this time, I was like doing a little bit of nutrition on the side, just kind of for fun. But then I worked as an osteopath as well, managed a gym's personal training, like management of the facility kind of thing, opened my own clinic, had like a multidisciplinary team. And this whole time I kept seeing like people who are like 300 pounds, 250 pounds, and like they're on these 1,200 calorie diets that their doctors put them on, and appetite suppressants, and eat less, move more, eat less, move more. And like, if that didn't work for 2 years, it's not magically going to start happening now. Like it's not going to start working. So I'm like, okay, something else is going on. So I really dived deep into like metabolism and how that affected things and hormones. And that made a world of a difference. And then all of a sudden I started working with a ton of like perimenopausal, menopausal women. And it was like, okay, rules still apply, but things are like different, like very different. So I really dove into like the hormones and things like that, with women going through perimenopause and menopause. And it's a whole different ballgame. Like your body changes so much. And there's so many other considerations that you need to take when you're doing training and when you're doing your nutrition, like things, what you were doing before isn't working anymore. And there's a reason for that. So that's really what I like niched down in and really focused on, is just women's health and hormones, particularly in perimenopause and menopause. And it's been amazing. And it's so wonderful to see people tell us, I finally feel like myself again. Like I went through this time where it was like, woke up one day and I felt like I had this big tire around my waist and I'm so stressed out and I'm not sleeping, and hot flashes and night sweats and irritability, and my libido is gone and my hair is falling out, and I'm eating less, I'm cutting my carbs, I'm doing the cardio I used to do before, and somehow I'm getting fatter, or I'm more bloated, or I'm just more miserable and I'm putting in all this effort and it feels like things are just not going the way they're supposed to and I don't know what's going on. So like learning about your body and your hormones and how all those things really work together, it makes you like feel less broken. You're less frustrated and hard on yourself. And it makes it easier to like change, because you're like, oh, there's a reason. Like, it's not like I'm not trying hard enough or whatever it may be. Like it kind of gives you this sense of calm of like, okay, there is something going on. There is something I can do. Here we go. And the best part is you get to have carbs. You don't have to run. It's great.
Awesome. Okay. So, what are some of the difference? I know, loaded question, but I work with a lot of women who are in that range of perimenopause. High end is menopause, but we don't work with as many women who are, but we do have some clients. So, what are the differences between someone who's, say, like 35 and not there yet, and someone who is, say, 55 and they're in perimenopause or menopause?
Yeah. So one of the biggest things is our stress tolerance decreases like a lot. So basically, like I'll just briefly talk about perimenopause first. It's like you're born with all of your follicles on your ovaries at birth. And then as we pass a reproductive prime, those follicles start to weaken and kind of die off. So then our levels of estrogen and progesterone start to decrease, but it's not like a steady decline where you can like adapt slowly. Typically, it's pretty erratic. We can't control how much is being produced and whatever. However, we have this lovely thing called cortisol, which is our stress hormone. And when that's high and elevated, which like in times today is all the time, like I don't know who you talk to that isn't having stress of some way, shape, or form in their life. When that happens, it really affects estrogen and like will tank our progesterone quite quickly because when cortisol is high, it takes away precursors to like produce progesterone, for example. And then it also decreases thyroid function and all these things. So you get these like all of a sudden it'll drop even more than it like typically would. So your body can't handle stress. So before, because estrogen and progesterone are a great stress buffer. So as those decrease, stress tolerance decreases. So maybe before you could handle like a 9 out of 10 on a scale of stress. And that includes like your kids, your spouse, running around, not sleeping, work stress, deadlines, financial stress, not eating enough, doing a ton of cardio. Those are all stressors. So before we could handle like a 9 out of 10 before things kind of like went sideways and you start feeling the fatigue, it starts affecting your sleep, weight gain, thyroid function, metabolism, gut health, all these things. Now it's like a 5 out of 10. So stress management is really, really important. But we all think that, oh, I'm gaining weight. I need to push more and eat less, which is going to increase your cortisol even more. And cortisol leads to inflammation, bloating, gut issues. It increases your insulin resistance and poor blood sugar control, which also leads to fat storage. Like it leads to all these things that actually put your body into fat storing mode instead of fat burning mode, is the way that I kind of like to explain it. So you actually have to do less to get results. Like we see this all the time with women who are doing HIIT and cardio and all these crazy things. And then it's like, okay, let's just taper down your exercise. And then boom, losing weight. And they're like, what? And they still like, oh, I want to see weight loss be quicker. So I'm going to do some extra cardio and then plateau, tailor it down a bit. And then all of a sudden they start losing weight again. It's like, you really have to understand that your body can't handle stress like it did before. And we can't always get rid of stress. So if there's certain things you can't get rid of, you actually have to eat more. You have to do the appropriate kind of exercise in a way that your body will actually respond appropriately. So it's just really learning how to take care of this new body of yours because it is different and it can't handle things the way that it used to.
Yeah, I would see that all the time when I was in-person trainer, and it's like people would be like, "Do I need to do 2 a days?" And then they would just start like trying to do like a second workout each day, and then they're cutting out all their carbs and, like you said, eating 1,200 calories, and like, why can't I lose weight? And they're just stressed to the max. And usually, what I found was they were really good with their diet during the week, and then all of a sudden the weekend happened as like their first chance for their stress to come down, and they had no willpower left. Like it was all burnt up. And it's like, all right, we went out with the girlfriends, and I don't know how, but I had like an entire bottle of wine and an entire pizza. Like, how did I, like 3 days in a row? What?
Yeah. And like what happens is like you're just constantly in this state of fight or flight all of the time. And like the way I always refer to it, and like if anyone watches any of my stuff or hears any of my stuff, I refer to this analogy all the time. But your body is like ready to fight the bear or run away from the bear. That's fight or flight. So if you are constantly in fight or flight from like not eating enough, doing a ton of exercise, not sleeping, yada, 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 extra stress, all that kind of stuff. If you're constantly doing that, your body is like on defense. It's not thinking about your appetite. It's not thinking about reproduction, like nothing. Like it is just trying to survive. So as soon as you get out of fight or flight, now your body's like, oh my gosh, that was a crazy 5 days. We are so stressed out. Like, what are we going to do about it? So then your body sends all these signals through like your hunger hormones and like satiety hormones and stuff like that to make you eat more. So it's not just like a lack of willpower. It's like your body is actually being like, we don't want to do that again. Like we want to be prepared. So as soon as you learn to like your body relaxes, it's like, okay, we got to get ready for the next round because it's coming. And if this is something that you're doing all of the time, it's just this cycle of like stress and then like binge and stress and binge and stress and binge is basically how it goes. So the way you solve that is by like actually eating enough during the week. Like if you're eating 1,200 calories, it's not enough. 1,600 calories, probably not enough either. Like I'm 5'5", I'm 145 pounds. I have hormone issues myself. I cannot handle stress well at all. Like if I have a stressful day, I'm like, gym is cut. Like cannot do it. Might go for a walk. That's it. Like the past 2 weeks have been like a little bit stressful for me. I haven't gone to the gym since, but was able to lose weight these last few days because my body was like, okay, we're good. Like you're recovering enough. We're safe. It's fine. So it's like, if you're eating enough during the week, it won't lead to those binges because you're actually giving your body what it needs. So it's not stress the F out all of the time.
Yes. Okay. So we handle the diet part there with eating enough, but what does like an exercise program look like? Because a lot of coaches, myself, way back in the day too, like push super hard with every single client, but also like we have the OTFs where it's like do hit every single day. So someone who can't handle stress or has like a really stressed out life, what should their exercise protocol look like? Because you just said you skipped the gym for like the past couple of days and you just did walking. And to a lot of people, they're going to be like, there's no way I could do that. The gym's my therapy.
So when people say gym is therapy, you're a cortisol junkie and you need help. It's what I like to say. So you're someone who's like looking for that adrenaline rush because it's normal. It's like what your body is used to. It's used to go, like being constantly in that state of fight or flight because it's predictable. It's what your body anticipates. Our body likes routine. So like when you actually take time to slow down, it is freaking uncomfortable, like so uncomfortable. But like, I mean, I used to work at OTF. The fact that I didn't get fired from there is actually pretty surprising because like, I was like, whoever does the least amount of rounds wins. And they're like, what? I'm like, slow it down. This isn't a race. I don't care about your stupid heart rate. Like 3 seconds down your bicep curls, like slow things down. And like, people were improving and seeing changes and stuff. But like, luckily head office never came in on a day that I was coaching. But like, the reason this is so important is like, particularly during perimenopause and menopause, we have a reduced ability to put on and maintain muscle mass because when estrogen goes down, that is a catabolic hormone or anabolic hormone. It's a hormone that helps build muscle mass. So when that decreases, our body naturally wants to start breaking down muscle for energy. We don't want that because muscle is what makes us look fit and toned. It keeps our metabolism nice and high. It helps with our blood sugar control and insulin sensitivity. There are so many benefits that come from having muscle aside from like looking great. So that's an issue in itself. Plus, if we're in a high stress state, plus if we are not eating enough food, plus if we are low carb, all those things also cause our body to go into a catabolic state. So by eating less, doing a ton of cardio and HIIT, not sleeping enough, and then having estrogen go down, you are sending 4 times a single signal to your body, break down muscle for energy, break down muscle for energy. And then you lose it. And it's really hard to get back on because you don't have estrogen. Mm-hmm. And plus people are still just like not getting it in their head. You need to eat enough and you need to have carbs. So the way we like to adapt training for women who are going through perimenopause and onwards is to focus on strength training and getting strong. Ditch those little pink baby weights, like focus on getting strong. So try to lift a weight like 6 times. If you can lift it more than 8, that's your sign to pick up a heavier weight. You will be shocked at how much that you can lift. You're not going to get super bulky. Trust me, I've tried and it is really hard to do. And I have to have a really strict diet and work out appropriately. Like it takes a lot of planning and discipline. You're not going to get super bulky, I promise you. But then you also want to focus not only on that, but you want to focus on your rest periods because when estrogen goes down, we have a reduced ability to actually access our energy stores. So we need the extra recovery time to actually get the most out of our workout. Otherwise, we're going to fatigue set to set quicker. So you're not going to get the most out of your programming that you could. So rest period should be like 2 minutes. And this isn't like 2 minutes of pacing or skipping or doing crunches. You are sitting down and you are waiting for 2 minutes. And that's going to seem like an eternity. It's going to be very uncomfortable. You're going to feel like you're being unproductive, but you're not. Rest and recovery, particularly during perimenopause and menopause, is so, so important because of that stress response. And yes, to become more resilient with stress, you do have to expose yourself to stress semi-regularly and planned, but then you have to do things to bring that stress down. Because if you work out and then you're not doing anything afterwards to get yourself out of fight or flight, then you're just pumping cortisol like crazy all of the time. So you want it to be acute. Like that's what we want it to be, is just like a short burst of stress, and then you can relax and bring it down. So that's why eating carbs and protein after a workout, very, very important to bring those cortisol levels down as well. So there's lots of things to like consider, but doing the high intensity, high cardio stuff is just going to like double down that signal to break down muscle mass and like increase your cortisol. When cortisol is high, typically we're not hungry, so you're not going to eat after your workout, which like when I was in university, I was like, oh, it's great. Like I'm kind of hungry. I'll go for a run and then I'm not going to feel hungry later. Terrible. I completely destroyed my hormones. Not good. Don't do that.
Yeah, that's pretty awful.
It's not a good time. Not a good time.
That my wife did something similar. Like before we started dating, my wife and I met at the gym, and I was doing a nutrition consult with her. And before anything, it was like her day, like or her week one in the gym. It was like, yeah, we're not going to do that ever again. Like that is going to wreck your hormones. She's like, oh, I did not know that.
Yeah. It's so funny because like Taylor, he doesn't know much about like nutrition stuff. Like my husband to be here soon. I'm so excited. But he'll like be like, is this like this or this like this? And he'll be like, is the reason I'm feeling this way because I like didn't have enough carbs today, or like because I skipped lunch? Like he's like more aware of it now, which is awesome. But he's like, man, I would have like, this never would have crossed my mind or like even been important to me if I haven't like heard you like tell stories and like the things that you do with your clients and your social media and all that kind of stuff. I'm like, yeah, it's crazy because like the narrative is just like not, I just feel like the industry has done a disservice for a lot of people, unfortunately. Mm-hmm. And now there's definitely more of a trend of bringing like awareness and focusing on recovery and not like glorifying the burnout and stuff anymore. So it's starting to trend in the right direction. It's just, it sucks that it's this late in the game, but better later than never. Right. So
yeah. So you said something important with carbs helping reduce stress and cortisol. Mm-hmm. So a lot of people believe carbs are bad, carbs are evil, and they're just going to make my waistline bigger and bigger every time I eat them. So how do carbs help with your cortisol and stress?
Yeah. So when you have carbohydrates, it lowers your cortisol levels and also increases your melatonin, which is like your sleepy hormone, which helps you go into like rest and digest. So having like a bedtime snack that includes carbs in it is actually a great way to start improving your sleep. It's something we do with every single one of the clients that come into our program, and is a huge game changer. Yes. Carbs in general are just so important. There are studies that show in women that when you decrease your carbs, thyroid function actually starts to decrease. And like in quite a small amount of time. And thyroid's important. It's like your thermostat as to like how many calories your body naturally wants to burn. So as that decreases, then you're going to burn less calories, just like being as is, which like nobody wants. So carbs, very important. The more stressed out you are, the more active you are, the less sleep that you're having, the more go you are, the more carbohydrates that you're going to need. And this isn't an excuse to like go crush like a box of donuts every day. Like you want to come from like whole grains. You can have breads, you can have pastas, you can have legumes, you can have rice, you can have whatever, fruit, great, potatoes, awesome. Like you need to have carbohydrates. You really do. They're not an essential nutrient before anyone like murders me over that. Yes, you can survive without them, but you're going to feel like garbage. And I'm about like thriving, not surviving. So there's that. Plus they're delicious. Like why wouldn't you want them? And the other thing people always argue about is blood sugar. Carbs, my blood sugar, carbs, my blood sugar. You know what actually increases your blood sugars a lot? Cortisol. Because when you're stressed out, your body is constantly pumping sugars, like dumping glucose into your bloodstream to either fight the bear or run away from the bear. And naturally we would use up those sugars when we're doing the fighting or the running away. And then we would recover, right? It's like a short-term thing. However, most of us are stressed out all the time. So our body is just constantly pumping sugars into our bloodstream, but we're just sitting at our desk freaking out and not using that energy at all. Right. So then our insulin is going to go up to try and like bring those blood sugars down. And eventually it's going to lead to insulin resistance. So if you are actually in this stress state and starting to have carbohydrates appropriately to help buffer that, your body can actually like adjust a lot better. And that can help with your blood sugars a ton. So I think people just have like this narrative backwards because like cortisol and insulin are going to fight each other all day, but cortisol will always win every day for the rest of your life, no matter what. So addressing cortisol is so much more important. I shouldn't say so much more important. It's a huge piece of the puzzle. If you don't address it, you're never going to get to the root cause and like actually solve your problems.
Yeah. So how I'll send women like how many carbs I want them to eat. And they're so used to like low carb diets. And to me, it's a moderate approach. Usually I start people off with a more moderate approach to carbs, but they're like, oh my God, that has so many carbs. So when you start working with women who are in perimenopause or menopause, about how many grams of carbs? I know it's going to be a range, but how many grams of carbs should someone be eating per day?
I mean, it's really going to depend on the person, right? And like their history, like how stressed out they are, any autoimmune conditions they may have, things like that. Like with Hashimoto's and like hypothyroidism, you'll have to increase a little bit slower, calories and carbs in general. But it really depends on the person. However, like, I can't remember what study it was or where I saw it, but it was like 130 grams is like the minimum most women need to like actually help with like bodily functions. Cause you need it for like brain health, nervous system, like everything. Right. So
Yep.
a lot of people, like I've seen women eating like 30 grams of carbs a day. I'm like, I do not know how you do that. Like, I genuinely do not understand. Like, I don't know how you get so little. I really don't. Like, it's, to me, it's so absurd. But the thing is, like, you want to increase slowly because, like, people, honestly, if you're increasing your carbs, just don't go on the scale for a bit because you're going to freak out and panic. But like, to digest carbs, you need quite a bit of water. So 1 gram of carbs is going to be like 3 to 4 grams of water. So as you increase your carbohydrates, your body is going to have a little bit more fluid retention at first until like it starts to like regulate and understands like how consistent you are and things like that. So being consistent is going to be super important. So your body can actually like adapt and adjust. But it's also important to know as you increase your carbs, you're going to increase your fiber, which is like incredibly important for your microbiome. Like being keto for a long amount of time will like destroy your gut microbiome. Like it will not be good for you. I promise you, it's not a good time. So fiber is very important. But again, as you increase fiber, you want to do this slowly because like it will bring water into your gut to help to digest. But if you aren't like used to it, like it's a lot harder for your body to break down. So you have to increase slowly. Otherwise you are going to end up constipated or bloated or things like that. So increasing slowly, very, very important. But to increase carbs, it's not that hard. Like people panic and they're like, I don't know what it can have. It's like, okay, this is a great time to just rediscover what you like to eat. Like, or where you're having your carbs in your meals, just have a little bit more than you're used to, like just a teeny bit more, increase slowly that way. Have a couple crackers with your lunch, have a half a cup of grapes. Like it doesn't have to be super complicated. Just think of some fruits. Like fruit are such a great way to increase your carbohydrates, and it's going to provide you with so many benefits through like micronutrients and things like that as well, your vitamins. So there's just lots of benefits to it, but increasing slowly. But typically that range, like I wish I could remember what that study was. I'll have to look it up later and send it to you. But it was like 130 grams is like the minimum to like do well is basically
Just saw
what I'm
that
trying
study
to say.
the other day, actually, and
Okay, good.
130. Yeah.
Yeah.
I do find so like my wife has hypothyroidism and PCOS, and she tends to feel best about 120 grams of carbs per day. So obviously, like 130 is going to be like probably the middle. I saw the study, I haven't read through the whole thing, so I'm sure there's a range, but
yeah,
it's definitely like over 100 for most people.
And it's going to be a little bit different, and the type of carbs is going to be different too, right? Because everyone's like a little bit different. And also like what you prefer, but it depends a lot on like your activity levels and your sleep and stuff like that. Like it's really important to note, like there's all these like rules that you see out there, right? But it's like everyone has such a different history and genetics and what they've experienced and trauma and like what they do on a day-to-day basis, what their home life is like, financial, like there's so many things that contribute, plus like your entire life history of literally everything that you've done is going to contribute. Then you toss in hormones and like perimenopause, like it's not going to be the same for everyone. This is why like getting assessed by someone can be so huge, because anyone that just like tells you, like you give them your age, height, and weight and like your goal, and they just like spit out something for you to follow, or like just wants to cut your calories really quickly, red flag all the way. And plus it's supposed to have an exit plan. So if nobody talks to you about that, that's also a problem.
Yes. Oh, always need it. Nobody likes to talk about that. Like, oh, what are we going to do at the end? Like people get into keto, like it worked for me in the past. And it's like, it didn't because you regained all the weight and then some. But what's your exit plan? I'll figure it out later. What?
Yeah, that's not good.
That's not a plan. That's gonna be a problem. You're gonna end up in the same position you are now.
Yeah, you're just crossing your fingers and going in blindfolded and hoping for the best that somehow this time it will be different, but it won't.
It won't be. It wasn't for the last decade or two, so it won't be this time either.
Yeah, exactly.
So, question, selfish question, because my wife has PCOS, but we do work with some women who have it. What is a strategy for them because they always struggle with weight loss? So, if someone comes to you, because that's something you said early on with PCOS, how do you address their diet and their exercise?
Yeah. So like with PCOS, same thing. Stress response is typically going to be lower. And cortisol is going to be huge, but it's important to note there's like 4 different kinds of PCOS. So there's like one that has to do more with like blood sugar, one that has to do more with stress. There's different kinds, but typically the biggest thing is going to be de-stress, whole foods, and really watching inflammation because inflammation is a huge one and blood sugar is going to tie into that. So typically the first thing we do is like see where stress is at and address that. Adjust their training with like longer rest periods. Typically there's going to be like a removal of intensity for a little bit to like allow their system to kind of recover because they've usually been through a lot. I too have PCOS, so it's a struggle.
Yep.
And then really watching like inflammation and like figuring out what your triggers are. So for me, like I can't have a ton of fiber, for example. Like for me, fiber, I tend to do better around like 15 to 20. Like if I go above that, and I've tried to like slowly increase like the bloating, the inflammation, like digestion, it's just not good. But I think it's just from years of chronic stress and like that's going to lead to bloating and intestinal issues and stuff. So like it like healing takes time. It does take time, but some people do well if they take out like classic inflammatory foods. So like if like dairy and gluten can be a sensitivity, but I like to avoid taking things out unless like we really need to. But that can help like a ton as well, depending on the person. But again, it's the same thing as like slowly increasing, adjusting that exercise intensity, and blood sugar control is like a really big one. And that's one that I like notice I like deal with quite easily. Like I can tell when I'm like starting to like, oh, I need my snack. Like things aren't great here. So this is like not having water around meal times because it will like make your stomach empty quicker and lead to blood sugar spikes and drops. You will also see like trying to eat like most of your protein and veggies, like at least half of them on your plate first before like going to your carbs. Also helps with your blood sugar control. Like there's so many things that you can do to really help. So like improving your muscle mass, walking after meals, de-stressing. Because again, we know that if cortisol is high, it's going to affect your blood sugar. So there's a ton of things that you can do. So like blood sugar control, stress, those are like the two big ones, and anti-inflammatory as well, depending on like severity of symptoms and how long we've been dealing with it. But again, it's just really super individualized, but stress control is like the number one for most like autoimmune conditions and hormone conditions and things that we see.
Yeah. So back when I did a hormone masterclass, it was literally like one of those things like stress. Like it's on every single hormone. Everyone you don't want high, stress makes it high. Everyone you want like optimized, you need stress low.
Yeah. And it's like, honestly, cortisol is like what I like to call a puppeteer master. Like it controls insulin and then insulin kind of controls everything else. And cortisol does affect like the other hormones. So like we're just constantly trying to like plug the holes at the bottom, but like the issue is at the top. It doesn't matter. Like you're not fixing the problem. Like, and I think that's where a lot of people go wrong is we're treating symptoms instead of like the actual root causes. So like, oh, thyroid's not doing great. Here's some medication. Cool. That might help in the meantime. And like, that's awesome. And some people will need that depending on like what they have going on with their thyroid. But why did that happen to your thyroid in the first place? Like what actually caused that to happen? I think that's where like the gap is like we're so used to just like quick fixes and stuff to like heal the symptoms. But the problem is still happening underneath the surface and it's going to manifest and get worse and start affecting other areas in your body. And people just like it doesn't click and it's not sexy. It's not quick. It's not fun. It's not like I don't know, like it's not like dressed up, right? It's like, nah, you need to eat more, de-stress, adjust your exercise appropriately. Let's do things to try and help you sleep better. And that doesn't mean you have to have like this crazy, wicked, like sleep routine. It's like, okay, if you de-stress and eat enough, you are going to sleep better. Like I can
Yep.
guarantee you that. Like I would bet money on that because it's happened every single time we've done it with a woman in our program. So it's
Yep.
like if you focus on those things first, everything else will improve. Like that's just how it works. But people just can't. It's just not sexy. It's just not.
No, you can't put it in like a pink plastic bag and be like, here you go.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Um, so stress management is a huge component of my program. And it's
Mhm.
something like, it's a weird thing to talk about because there's no like one right answer for like every single person. But what are some tips for managing your stress that you give to your clients?
Yeah, so there's a few. So like going for walks, super underrated. And like you're not walking to burn calories, you're not doing this crazy pace mall walk, you're not listening to like a podcast that's gonna get you worked up. Like you're doing things to relax. And I think we're just so like we're so stuck in like if we're not productive, we're wasting time. And like I
Mhm.
still struggle with that too. But like, you know what makes you more productive? Rest. So
Yeah.
like that's important to note. So yeah, to help with like de-stressing activities, honestly, carbs is going to be a huge one. Make sure you're having your carbs, make sure you're eating enough, going for walks, getting out in sunlight can help so much. But like what I like to tell people is like, think of the last thing that like actually brought you joy. Like what actually makes you happy? Go and do those things. And like, no, don't tell me like a hit class because that's wrong. Try again. That's a cortisol junkie situation. Ain't wrong. But like, what are things that actually fill up your cup and like you feel good after? Is it like listening to some music? Is it meditation? Is it yoga? Is it like baking with your family? Is it board games with your family? Is it knitting? Is it crocheting? Is it journaling? Is it reading? Like there's so many things that you can do. And I can encourage people, it's like, what are things that you used to do that you miss? Or what are the things I heard this on a podcast once or read it in a book, I can't remember, but it's like, what were the things that you used to enjoy when you were a kid, like that you actually loved doing? Let's try and bring those back. And like for me, it was like I loved walking. I remember going like walking everywhere with my mom, like walking to the park. I didn't actually like spend that much time at the park, but just like the act of walking and visiting and like that connection and that time you had together. Love it. So like I always feel best if I'm able to like spend time outside and walk and do things like that. So and like reading, love reading. I always feel great after reading. So it's really finding out those things. And then our one thing that we do with like everyone in our program is feet up. This is where you lay on the ground or the bed with your bum as close to the wall as possible, feet up on the wall. So you're kind of like an L shape. And then that what that does is it forces blood from your legs back to your gut to help with digestion, first of all. But second of all, it forces your body to go out of fight or flight and into rest and digest because your heart rate's going to slow down, digestion is going to increase. And then when you're there, you're just focusing on like literally just taking deep breaths and like slowing down your breathing. That's all you're trying to do. You can listen to some music if you want, whatever it is. But if you can do that like twice a day throughout the day, before bed is awesome. But if you can take time in your day midday to like get out of that fight or flight, because usually we wake up and we're like, all day
Mhm.
until we get to nighttime. So it's like if you can find like 5 minutes in your day to just chill, like you will be shocked at how much better you feel. It's actually crazy. It'll feel uncomfortable at first, but like again, slowing down and like this new way of life is going to be challenging. But it just takes a lot of practice, a lot of practice. And I'm still practicing and I preach it all the time, but it's hard sometimes and it's not always going to be easy. And it might feel like, oh, I'm just wasting my time. Like I got to have 5 more minutes of productivity. I'm like, 5 minutes, like 5 minutes in your day out of 24, you can do it. I promise.
Well, so one to the audience, I can confirm that Steph herself actually does the L thing, because I've seen it in person many times.
Yeah, I do it at conferences, at
Yep,
meetings. Like
everywhere.
yeah, I'll be on the floor at some point. People will see me. It's kind of gross. Sometimes you're in a hotel lobby, but I'm like, I need to.
So someone said, I forget where I actually learned this, but your brain actually works with like productivity, just kind of like your muscles, where it needs that downtime. Like you need to go, go, go. And then you need that rest for all the neurotransmitters and everything else to replenish. Because if you're trying to focus on a task, it's like you get a good like 45 minutes, maybe an hour and a half. But if you try to like do like deep work for a long period of time, like the first hour would be productive, and then hour two is like starting to whittle down, and then hour three was like you got like 5 minutes of work actually done.
Honestly, it's true. And this is where like, I mean, it sucks. I mean, if you work at a job where it's 9 to 5, you don't have a choice when you work. I'm lucky enough that I can work from home now, but it's like people are like, oh, you work on weekends. I'm like, honestly, if I can sit for like an hour and a half Saturday and Sunday, I get so much stuff done. It's crazy. Like I am so productive. And then that gives me time, like when I'm not feeling productive or I'm feeling exhausted and I'm not able to, it's like, okay, then I can take that time off to like just chill and do something else because like when I feel productive, I really capitalize on it. But I mean, it sucks in like this day and age, depending what you're doing for work. Not everybody has that freedom, unfortunately. But I'm like, I can like, I've noticed a huge difference in like how I operate and function now that I have the ability to work from home, where it's like, okay, I don't have to be on a meeting right now. I can take 15 minutes to just like chill, to go sit outside on the back deck and like soak up some sun for like literally 10 minutes, then come back in. Like, I'm not out there on my phone answering messages. It's like, no, like I'll literally just like lay on our deck. Taylor's like, are you okay? I'm like, yeah, I'm fine. I'm just chilling. He's like, oh, okay. just making sure you're not having like an internal meltdown or something.
No, it's very, very important. I do that mid-afternoon every single day. And it's one of those internally, like I'm still conflicted of like, I'm not being productive. I'm not getting work done. I'm not, but when I get back to work, like I'm super productive in those last couple hours where I was like, and I've done it. I'm sure you have too, where you just try to like, I'm going to just like push through as like working lunch and you're just going to push through and you're like, that was the worst day ever.
Yeah. And it's like the stuff you like churned out wasn't that great anyways. And like, you're just not feeling great anyways. It's not good. It's just not good.
So you're easily distracted. Every phone notification or every pop-up, you're like jumping tasks. And it's like, no, just focus on one thing. Nope, you can't when you're just like mentally drained.
Yeah. And this is honestly why I work out like in the afternoon, is because like usually I work out like around 12 or 1. Like I usually leave for the gym around then, because it's like in the morning, I'll crush out like a few hours and really do great. Then I might answer some messages and then go to the gym and then come back and like reset and like kind of go into a different mode. I'll be like on calls or whatever it is. But it's important to like give yourself time to like not think about productivity work-wise sometimes, because like just gets to be a lot and it can be super overwhelming, and then that's going to create more stress. And I mean, if you think about women during perimenopause and menopause, like you're also dealing through things of like losing a parent or taking care of sick family members or, you know, job changes or sometimes divorce, or now you have an empty nest or whatever it may be. Like there's already so many huge changes plus your hormones. And that comes like, it's just a lot of stress and a lot of change. And like giving yourself a little bit of grace to like, okay, I need to recover. I need to feed myself properly. I want to feel good again. That will lead to like the eventual weight loss and all the stuff that you're wanting to get to. But like recovery is such a huge, huge, huge part of this. And like, unfortunately, like our culture has just been like, no days off, work super hard, like got to hit the gym every day, like wake up super early. And it's like, if you're struggling with sleep, what the heck are you doing waking up at 4 a.m. to go to the gym?
Right.
No, like that. Don't do that. Don't do that. Like it might be the only time that you get to work out, but you know what? Focus on your recovery first. Give yourself a break for a few weeks. Focus on your food. Once you see sleep improve, sure, then you can start getting up early and trying again. But everyone thinks like you have to exercise so hard and you have to do it all of the time. And like, that's not always the case. Sometimes it ends up being worse for you. So like, this is why getting like assessed and talking to someone is so important, because like you could be doing more harm than good and you're just keep digging that hole deeper and deeper and deeper. And it becomes harder to come out of, and it's going to take longer. The longer you like don't address it, it's just going to keep getting worse and worse and worse. And then you're going to be mad because it's going to take you 6 to 12 months to reverse out of this before you can go into a fat loss phase. And it doesn't mean you're not going to lose weight during the process, but like, it's not going to be the journey that you want, and you're going to fight it. And the longer you fight it, the longer it's going to take you when you do decide this is the right move. So, yeah.
Yeah. There, I check stress levels with all my clients weekly, as I'm probably sure that you do too. So I have a client, he took on, so male client, so not quite with this conversation, but a great example here of going, like finishing grad school. He got this like promotion at work. So he's working full time at the same time, preparing for his wedding, And at work, like he is in charge of this like company wide product because he's in like the tech. So it's some new like app thing for the company where the higher ups were like, you're in charge of this thing. And if it breaks, well, that's going to be a problem for the entire company.
Oh my gosh.
His stress level is like every single week, like 9 out of 10, 10 out of 10. Like digestion has like gone down. So like his check ins are, hey, just chill out. Like you didn't hit like 2 days at the gym. Awesome. That's fine. You didn't go to the gym at all. You've slipped up a little bit on the weekend. That's fine. Like not the journey he wants, but we also planned out like his wedding is in September. We started this journey back last January. Not this
That's the thing.
January, last
Yeah, and
January.
that's the thing. People think it's like, oh, I just need a coach for like 6 months. And for some people, yeah, you'll get all the resources and stuff that you need in a short period of time and be good. But for some people, it's like, I have clients that have been reversing for like a year and a half because it's like, you've been through so much. I mean, if you want to try and cut calories, go ahead. I'm not condoning it. And I promise you're not going to see the results that you want. And you're probably going to feel like garbage. Like, let's just not prolong your timeline by like dipping down and having to fix that and then continue doing what we were doing before. Like, focus with the plan. And it's going to take time. It's an investment that you are like actually trying to solve the root problem and like learn how to handle these situations. Because let's face it, life happens. Like nothing ever goes according to plan.
No.
So like learning how to like work around those things and those events, super important. And it's great because like surgeries are going to pop up, injuries are going to pop up, grief is going to pop up. Like there's going to be so many things that happen. So like learning what to do when those things happen so that you don't like destroy progress that you've made, huge part of the journey. And like you will get so much out of that. So he's going to get so much out of that just having your support during that stressful time.
Yeah. He just graduated like this week. So it's like I'm like,
exciting.
Hey, take the week off.
Yeah.
And we're gonna get back to things in like a week. Like don't worry about it. Like just celebrate, have fun. And he's 4 pounds away from like his goal weight. So he's lost.
Oh, fantastic.
Let's see. He's close to 45 pounds of weight loss. So it's
amazing.
Like, just
and people
we're
are
4
like,
pounds away.
In a year and a half. Yeah, in a year and a half. Like sustainable weight loss is like 0.5 to a pound a week. Like it's not these huge things because then if you're losing more than that, you're losing muscle mass and your metabolism goes down and you look skinny fat and then you're upset and like it's not this crazy quick thing. And like this is why when people have lost weight super quickly in the past, now it's harder to lose weight because you lost a crap ton of muscle mass during that process.
Yep.
A ton. Like, so now you don't have that muscle buffer to like help you. So it's like, it's going to take significantly longer. And each time you do it, it's going to be harder. So it's like, let's just fix this now, move forward. You never have to worry about it again. That's like the goal. Not a great business model, but you know what? We're helping people.
Exactly. And then for certain parts of the year, you might not be able to diet. Like for me, like from Halloween until New Year's, that is the no diet period for me. Like I am going to have fun. I'm going to eat these foods. I'm going to put on the fluffy 5 or 10 pounds, but whatever. I have a plan. And for a lot of clients, we bring this up in like October, early October of like, hey, let's make a plan. Because what do you want to do? Do you want to try a diet through the holidays or do we want to go into maintenance? So yeah, that time of year, you might not be losing weight. Like it might be time to build muscle.
Yeah. For me, mid-October to January, I celebrate Thanksgiving twice because I'm Canadian and then American Thanksgiving because why not? I love pecan pie. I love food. I'm like a big, like Thanksgiving is my favorite holiday. So I celebrate it twice.
That's amazing.
Yeah, like I love it. So I'm like from mid-October to January, I'm in maintenance or a reverse. I'm focusing on putting on muscle mass, healing, enjoying social situations. Then from like January to March-ish, I might be doing like a fat loss phase. Then from like March to April, I'll take a little breather. And then from like April to June, I might do another shortcut. And then summertime, also not going into a fat loss phase because there's barbecues, there is camping, there is like all the like fun holidays and like graduations and weddings. And like, I want to enjoy myself and I love ice cream. So like, yeah, I'm not doing that to myself. And like, if you're trying to like lose weight for summer and it's June, it's not going to happen. So like, just enjoy summer, maintain, heal your body. Then you can go into a fat loss phase like end of August to October or whatever it is we want it to do. But like, do it in cycles. Like you can't be in a fat loss phase forever anyways. We know that doesn't work. It just slows down your metabolism, then you're screwed. So it's like, do it in cycles. This is how it works. And sure, it might take some time. And like the scale might not move as quickly as you want, but body composition will improve a ton, especially if you capitalize on extra calories to put on muscle. Amazing.
Yep.
That's like best case scenario. That's like what you want.
Yep, exactly. Awesome. So we are starting to run out of time a little bit, but I do have two more questions for you. So
perfect.
One is loaded and we may or may not have time for it, but how does someone know if they need to reverse diet or not?
Oh man, I think I have a reel on this on my social media with like a list of things. But it's like, have you been in a low calorie state, like 1600 calories or less for more than 3 months? Do you have low energy? Do you struggle with your sleep? Have you been trying to lose weight actively for more than 3 months, which like most people, yes. Are you suffering with hair loss? Are you suffering with like no libido? Are you struggling with skin changes? Like, do you feel like you're doing everything right, yet nothing is working? There are so many things. And like, if you're having hormonal symptoms, but there are so many things that like, if you have 3 or more from that list alone that I just said, but there's like a list of 20 things, you probably need to reverse diet. And like people think that's like super scary. Honestly, like I'm having this conversation with a lot of people where they're like, I'm so scared. I'm so scared. So I actually got like a bunch of my like people in our program to like, I'm like, hey, can you like tell me about your reverse dieting experience? Because like a lot of people are absolutely freaking out and are terrified. And oh man, the email responses that I've been getting are like, I almost cry sometimes. I'm like, this is amazing. They're like, oh yeah, like I feel great. My libido is back. I'm not snapping at people. I'm not having brain fog anymore. My hot flashes are gone. I'm like being present with my kids. They offered me a 5-cent candy, which I never would take ever before. And I did. And my kid was ecstatic. I'm like, this is the stuff that I like love so much. Yep. But yeah, so a lot of things. If you feel like garbage, like if you don't feel great and you're not losing weight, you probably need a reverse diet. That's like a pretty short way to like sum it up, to be honest.
Reverse diet and then go into, and how long does a reverse diet typically last? Obviously some can go for a long time, but what's like a typical reverse diet time frame for you?
For us, usually when we see clients, so we have like an onboarding course, so they start reversing slowly on their own. Typically, like we'll give them some advice before they start. So that's about 4 weeks. Then usually after that, depending on the person, it could be another 4 weeks. For some people, it can be like 10 more weeks. So it can be anywhere from like a month and a half to 3 months. And then you have like people that have been through a lot that it's like a year. So it really, really depends. Honestly, all the coaches on my team, every single one of us have reverse dieted for at least a year at some point in our life, which is crazy.
Wow.
Every single one of us has a story of it. Yeah.
Okay. Interesting. All right. So last question. So I know you like hiking and the outdoors and stuff, and that's part of my podcast. So what is either your favorite outdoor memory or what is something that the outdoor brings you to help fulfill you in your life?
Oh, for me, the outdoors is like how I reset. Like being out in nature is like one of the most like soothing, calming things for me ever. I have so many good memories and stories of like just being outside. And like, I find when I'm out in nature, I'm more present. Like I'm like, be where your feet are kind of thing. And this is something that Taylor and I like, we actually had our like first argument, but like not really an argument. First, like butting of heads was on a hike in Hawaii, actually, where like, he is like getting to the top, we're getting a picture. He's like very like deadline, very like goals oriented checklist, get it done kind of thing. Whereas I'm like, I am too, but I'm also like, I enjoy the process of literally everything that I do. I'm a very like, that is how I am. I love the act of doing the stuff. And so he like, we were walking together. He's probably 50 meters ahead of me most of the time, 25 to 50. It was not a hike we did together by any means. I'll say that. And he got to the top and then he was like passing kids and he's like frustrated. He's like, oh, people can't hike, that they shouldn't get in my way. Like they're just going too slow. And so then the car ride, or then we're coming back down and he's like, oh man, like, was this tree here like before? And I was like, yeah, this is where you were erratically passing children like a lunatic because you want to get to the top. He's like, oh, this is like a really cool tree. And I was like, oh my gosh, like I'm just, this is not a good experience for me. And So we're in the car ride home and he's like, "Are you okay?" I'm like, "I did not enjoy that process at all. Like, you loved it. You took some pictures. It's a screensaver on your phone, which drives me crazy because to me, I'm like, that is not a good memory for me." I did not enjoy that process whatsoever. So we talked about it and I was like, "You're so focused on like getting to the top and just like getting the thing done and checking it off. And then like, okay, what's next?" And you totally miss like slowing down and enjoying it and being present and taking in the smells and the scenery. And like, I'm like the kids that he's passing erratically, I'm like, "Oh my gosh, they look like the little, like the little godmothers off of Cinderella with like the little pokey hats because it was
Yes.
raining, so they're wearing their little ponchos." I'm like, "You guys are so freaking adorable, like it's so cute." And he's like upset these kids are like in his way. And I was like, "Oh my goodness, Taylor, like what are you doing?" So then like ever since that experience, he's like so much more present and like slowing down and enjoying the process more. But that was like, honestly, it's one of my favorite stories because I'm like, it was a very like big monumental like point in our relationship, which, but I think it was for like the better. But I'm a very much like, I love taking in all the smells and the way things look. And for me, it's like how to actually reset when like life is so chaotic and crazy. Just being outside in nature and hiking is like what brings me back down, if that kind of makes sense.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah.
I promoted a ton in my program. So we have like a nature therapy course for clients
That's amazing.
to get outside and whatever it is, whether it's hiking or it's for me, it's like gardening and hunting, but also hiking or whatever it is to do that. So yeah, definitely there's research backing it up, but love that. And I used to be just like your soon to be husband of like just point A to point B. But after I got into like hunting and now it annoys my wife sometimes, I'm like, "Oh, did you see this and this? And oh, so the deer are going to come through here, or this is like an invasive plant that we should remove it." And she's like, "Oh my God, can we just like be in silence now?"
That's hilarious. See, like in like past relationships I've been in, I wasn't allowed to go hunting because I talk too much, which I think is like obvious from today. But like they're like, "You can't come because we won't get anything." I'm like, "You know what? That's valid."
Yeah, you can't really. My wife and I have hunted together a few times and it's very quiet.
Yeah, I'm not that kind of person.
Awesome. Okay, so where can people find you?
Yeah, so we have a podcast as well called the Metabolism and Menopause Podcast. We have our Facebook community, which is Metabolism and Menopause by Vitality, where we do like webinars and we do guides every single week with like different hormone topics and things you might be struggling with perimenopause and menopause. And we are going to be running a promo on Dutch testing, which is a hormone test to help you figure out why things are the way they are, if like things are producing too much or things just not getting out of your body quickly, really addressing the root causes. So we're doing a promo for that, 30% off Dutch testing with coaching purchased in July. So make sure to head to our Facebook group for info on that. And then my socials are vitality.oet.stephanie.
Awesome. And you're on Instagram and TikTok.
Correct.
Awesome. So those are going to be down in the show notes, guys. Make sure you go and give her a follow, check her out, especially if you're dealing with anything with perimenopause or menopause.
Perfect.
Hey guys, thanks for tuning in to today's episode. Make sure you check out the show notes and give Steph a follow, especially if her messaging resonated with you. Also down in the show notes, you will find our 5-day faster fat loss course and a few other things down there as well. So make sure you go check those things out. Also, while you're at it, make sure to give the show a 5-star review and also write up a review if you have the time for that, because it helps other people find the show and is always appreciated, as I do check weekly to see who is writing new reviews and how we can improve the show. But thanks for tuning in today, guys. Until next time.